love the sense of community, how everybody kind of comes together, and whenever we have an issue or there's something that needs to be addressed, folks are willing to come out and put their best effort into helping each other to solve problems. I think we have investments like the Colfax Garden, and we have Hillside Park down the street. All these different projects that are making the community better.
But overall, I think it did what we wanted it to do. It really showed the intersectionality between the gardens and art, and we looked at art broadly, from the health aspect, whether it was yoga, whether we were doing it also from historical perspective, capoeira, and the history that's associated with it. We love the fact that the children who came were engaged. Crystal, who handled the string art, and the Nancy spiders and the stories behind Nancy, those were great. I love what we did with Gwen. In fact, we had thought that we would have had that art piece finished before today, and it ended up being a demonstration, for the community at large. So it added immensely to what we were doing already. I think the hit were the food vendors. We couldn't get people away from the tables. Everybody was eating, but the food was healthy food. It exposed our community to a lot of culinary dishes that we weren't aware of, and so we liked them. The fact that they weren't our standard collard greens and black-eyed peas. They had quinoa to it and some other things. It was wonderful. So I think it was a great event, and I think the fact that we were able to record people's impressions about it will give us something to build on for our next program in August next month.
This, I think, would be fantastic.
This would be very nice because it's opening up. It's letting people know what's there because we got neighbors that you don't see.
Right.
Hopefully they'll come by today and visit and find out what's going on. Mm-hmm. And it's good for the kids to have something going on right in their space.
Right.
So they can interact with the people and get exposed to different activities.
Yes, because the kids, they always came through and they walked, this is nice. It's like a park.
Going to a park.
Mm-hmm. And, we never had a problem. No one ever vandalized. No one ever picked up stuff and threw it away and stuff like that.
Right.
Mm-mm. So we had a pretty good history here.
Yeah.
Well, the great thing is that right now in the community, it's a trend right now to be local, to be green, to be vegan and food friendly, and those things have been a trend. But for African American community, it's in our history. This is how we live. This is how we grew up.
And this event right here is just a perfect example of the neighborhood coming together and being healthy. And so this is something that I love, and I'm just having so much fun. The food is amazing, all different kinds of food. We're just eating it and talking to each other and listening to music.
It's good for the community because it helps sustain our culture, and it also sustains being able to grow your own food and spread that good healthy food also. You know what I'm saying? That's probably the most important thing. But it promotes, self-contained, environmental good health. And it's a great thing for the community.
And I love my neighborhood and my community. I was great. I'm happy to be here. I like to see this urban farm in the city, how just the different lives it touched. and just being able to teach people. I mean, from the fish being grown to the teepee. I mean, you don't get to see nothing like this every day. You know what I'm saying? So just being able to bring the kids out here and let them be around community, the potluck, us coming together, that village effect is great for me. I love it.
Because Riddall and Environmental Health Watch are actually both of my grantees with the foundation. So I'm here to support them as a local resident here in Cleveland, but also because we work together. We partner together to really bring to life their ideas that they want to do. I can't be successful at what I do without their great minds. So I'm here to celebrate their great minds and the work that they've done here in the neighborhood.
It was so much more than what I had anticipated. And just from the beginning to end, just a very positive, enlightening experience. I've had an opportunity to see some of the talent, but this showcase was really special, and it really enabled the whole neighborhood to come together as a collective, as it should.
My name is Truth. Prohibition is my song, and it means find something to do productive with your time. Discrimination, the reaper's here. Nothing intervene with I seen stuff. Bundled up quotes just to feel it. Plastic crime dropping dimes, people seasick. Hard to find a dollar bin to counterfeit. Pasta means really powerful. It's an obstacle, prepare for this life of welfare. Play like a renegade. Burn Picasso vision way over my head. Destruction when I mash the button. Undeniable advantages I gotta violate. The choir ain't say so many lies at stake. Prohibition, prohibition, prohibition. Prohibition, 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 prohibition. I'm humble, all that commissary stuff is trouble. That's why I got a rebuttal. See the streets turn good times to bad memories. There's no debate that the legislative stuff flows in the zone where every day I gotta deal with a pocket full of change like a vertebrae. Different situations checks out. I had to find myself, my demeanor tells it all. I stand tall through the darkest times like waiting no snow to fall. Protocol, prohibition, 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 prohibition. Prohibition, prohibition, prohibition.
Okay. So, thank you, Dayshawn. So, hi everyone. Welcome to Race Food Justice 2018. Thank you so much for your support. My name is Kim Foreman. I'm the Executive Director of Environmental Health Watch and one of the sponsors for the conference. I came up here today to talk a little bit about the Fresh Low Initiative. The video that you just saw was from our pilot in Garden Valley. We've been funded by Kresge, Cleveland Foundation, Cuyahoga Arts Council, and Sister Charity Foundation, who worked for 2 years in the Garden Valley community. And so our team consists of youth leaders. We have 5 youth leaders. Dayshawn is one. We have an awesome team. So Walt is here. Stand up, Walt. Brittany. And I don't know if any other our team members are here, but we'll be launching the initiative in June, and so we really want you to support the youth. It's 14 to 18-year-old youth, 20 youth in Garden Valley and Central. We're focused on food, arts, and culture, music, social media, urban ag, and culinary arts, as well as social enterprise. So we really want to focus on them owning their own intellectual product and or social enterprise. So it's really around entrepreneurship and business and leadership. So I did bring some documents for you to look at if you want to take a deeper dive. You can log on to our website, ehw.org, and sign up, and then you'll get notifications. So what I also want to do is recognize the planning team for Race Food Justice. So could you stand up if you're in the room, please? Social Justice Institute, from Case Western Reserve Social Justice Institute, Ridall, and our volunteers, thank you, from Environmental Health Watch, thank you. So this was, we're able to put on Race Food Justice because of our funders, Sisters of Charity Foundation, St. Luke's Foundation, Cuyahoga Department of Sustainability, Neighborhood Connections, Cleveland Neighborhood Progress, and the Alliance for Great Lakes. So we really appreciate your support and allowing us to do this once again. So I want to actually bring up Dr. Tim Black from Social Justice Institute. He wanted to talk to you briefly about something that they're supporting.
Just very quickly before Dr. Mobley comes up to welcome everyone, is Tarun in the house? Tarun, where did Tarun go? Okay, we will find him. I wanted to let you know that we in the Social Justice Institute, along with a number of student groups on campus, have been working on a criminal justice initiative reform ballot. We're trying to get on the ballot for November. And Tarun has the clipboard, and he's the person you would want to see if you want to help support this. Basically, what we're trying to do is, there he is right there. Tarun, say hello. And so basically what the initiative does is it reduces felony 4s and 5s to misdemeanors and takes that money and puts it into addiction. We're also trying to increase the amount of time that inmates can earn for good time to help towards getting released, and a few other things which you can talk to Tarun about. So he's going to be around, and if you're interested in learning more about it, or if you're interested in supporting it, please see Tarun, who's representing, as I said, a number of student groups on campus working on this. So thank you very much.
Today and tomorrow. I'll be here both today and tomorrow outside with Lisa. I'll be roaming around harassing people to sign the petition. So sorry in advance, but we got to get our signatures. So yeah, where can I pass this on?
Good evening, everybody. I don't like the way you all said it. How's everybody doing? Great. All right. Welcome to Race, Food, and Justice Conference at Case Western Reserve University 2018. I am Dr. Marilyn Sanders Mobley, Vice President for Inclusion, Diversity, and Equal Opportunity here at Case Western. I'm an English professor here. I'm also an alum, and I'm a member of the Social Justice Institute leadership team. And it is my honor to welcome you to our campus. I'd like to begin my remarks by offering a land acknowledgement for this evening. The practice of giving a land acknowledgement stems from both indigenous traditions and modern protocol. It is my honor this evening to lead us in recognizing the land upon which we reside and express our gratitude and appreciation to those who lived and worked here before us. From the ancient Panther people to the ancestors of contemporary Ojibwe, Lakota, Shawnee, and Wandako peoples of Northeast Ohio who hunted, fished, and gathered here, to the Lenape people and Six Nations people who sought refuge in Northeast Ohio during the Indian Wars of our colonial days. We recognize their resilient spirit and thank them for making the paths and passing on knowledge of plants and animals that has sustained human life for thousands of years. It was their stewardship and soft footprint that make our residence possible on this indigenous territory. So we begin our two-day conference. As we begin this conference, please take a moment to reflect on how our lives might represent this long-standing indigenous tradition of caring for the earth, each other, and future generations. I would like for us to also take this moment to reflect on our indebtedness to our ancestors from Africa, the land that is the cradle of civilization, and those women, men, and children of the African diaspora who endured the transatlantic slave trade and whose labor, unpaid labor, blood, sweat, and tears have also contributed to our ability to be here at this moment in time. We acknowledge and remember all those social justice and environmental justice change agents who set an example for us. We remember the shoulders on which we stand. We reflect on the price they paid, and we honor the importance of the ongoing struggle they began for freedom, justice, and equality as we gather for this conference. And we thank God for this opportunity to be together. Thank you. As a member of the Social Justice Leadership Team, I'm particularly pleased to see so many of you here and want to thank Kim Foreman. Want to thank you for all her efforts to organize this fifth opportunity to partner with Rid-All Green Partnership and the Environmental Health Watch for this conference. On behalf of President Barbara R. Snyder, Provost Bud Bazelak, Dean Cyrus Taylor, I'm pleased to share that we are quite proud of the interdisciplinary alliance of faculty, students, and staff that led to the founding of the Social Justice Institute under the vision of my dear sister and who we all love, Dr. Rhonda Williams. And we are most grateful for the ways in which our current interim director, Dr. Tim Black, who you just met, has carried the vision forward. The Office for Inclusion, Diversity, and Equal Opportunity directs and is responsible for strategic leadership for making Case Western Reserve a more inclusive, equitable campus, and we hope you will get the opportunity to visit the Kelvin Smith Library to view the Trailblazer Project, where one of our latest initiatives is a portrait project to present a more inclusive narrative of the university's history. Many of you know I'm a Toni Morrison scholar, and Toni Morrison says narrative is radical. It's creating us as it is being created. And so we believe that the narrative of Case Western Reserve University is more complete with more of the people who have gotten their degrees here. So if you get an opportunity to go to the Kelvin Smith Library, we hope you will do that. Like James Baldwin, we know if you lie about any part of our history, you will lie about it all. So we sought to tell more of the truth of our university's story in the Trailblazer Project. 6 portraits included our architect Bob Madison, former Surgeon General David Satcher, attorney Fred Gray, who was the attorney for Dr. King and Rosa Parks, Judge Sarah Harper from our own community, the late Congressman Louis Stokes, and the late Congresswoman Stephanie Tubbs Jones. Our other efforts to give attention to diversity include diversity and inclusion training and education about bias, microaggressions, privilege, engaging faculty, students, and staff in sustained dialogue to address campus and community issues, partnering with departments like the Office of Multicultural Affairs, Government and Community Relations, and the Social Justice Institute, and addressing issues like supplier diversity. We know that change never rolls in on wheels of inevitability, as Dr. King says, but it requires constant struggle. And we are living in times of struggle in this nation that require new vigilance and action to address racial justice, white supremacy, environmental, food security, and social justice. We appreciate this opportunity to think together on the theme of analyzing the urban food movement through a social justice lens. And I'm delighted to introduce this evening's keynote speaker. I'm about to introduce you, my sister. I'm pleased to introduce State Senator Sandra Williams, who represents Ohio's 21st State District, is currently serving her first term in the Ohio Senate. She is a native of Cleveland and attended Cleveland Public Schools. She holds a bachelor's degree from Cleveland State in political science, a minor in criminal justice, a master's in criminal justice administration from Tiffin University, and executive master's in business administration from Cleveland State University. Senator Williams, who serves as the vice chairwoman of the Cuyahoga County Democratic Party and associate professor at Cleveland State University, Senator Williams has spent more than 2 decades in public service as a correction officer, probation and parole officer, mediator for the state of Ohio, legislative aide, and state representative. She also served our country as a member of the United States Army Reserve and was honorably discharged in 1995. During her term in the General Assembly, she has made strong efforts on improving access to economic development opportunities, such as improving contracting for women and minority contractors. She has also worked to expand job training opportunities for Ohioans entering the workforce or transitioning into various fields. She has also championed initiatives that revise criminal sentencing and reentry laws that remove significant barriers to employment, providing a second chance for ex-offenders to allow them to become productive citizens. How many of us know that's important work? She spearheaded the passage of Ohio's lupus education and awareness program and also led the charge to restructure the Cleveland Municipal School District. As the former president of the Ohio Legislative Black Caucus, she focused on initiatives such as promoting quality education in the African American community, voting rights, how many we know that's important, decreasing inequalities in healthcare, increasing opportunities for minority business enterprises, and improving racial disparities in the criminal justice system. As part of the OLBC's commitment in higher education, she created the OLBC Scholarship Fund, which provides scholarships in Ohio for Ohio students. And I just want to say she's a dear sister who I have watched since I moved back here in 2009. And if you want something done, you want to call this sister. So please help me welcome Sandra Williams, the Honorable.
Can you guys hear me? Yeah, all right. Well, first of all, thank you, Dr. Mobley. I appreciate the kind words and the introduction. And I want to thank all of you for being here this evening for such a very important panel. I am very honored to be the moderator tonight, and I'm looking forward to having some great conversation with these experts in their field. We're going to start off by having each one of our panelists present to you, and then we're going to go into question and answer, and I hope that each one of you have some very detailed questions to ask them because you have the best of the best in this room tonight. I'm going to start off by reading just a small part of their bio. Their bios are in the handouts that you have, but I think we should highlight some key features within their bio. So I'm going to start off with Allyson Carpenter, who is a Harry Truman Scholar and a graduate from Howard University. At age 18, she was elected to serve as an advisory neighborhood commissioner in the District of Columbia, making her the youngest elected official in the nation's capital. She proudly served on the National Organizing Committee of the Women's March on Washington and has been profiled by MSNBC as a rising star in politics. She hosts a digital series for BET called What's at Stake, which highlights social justice and political issues in the African American community. Keymah Durden, who I have worked with on so many things, is trained in avionic mechanical engineering and in construction, which I did not know until today. His passion for sustainable living and environmental protection has taken him around the world to places like Ghana, West Africa, where he was involved in the African Hebrew Development Agency, He spearheaded their Fresh Well Water Initiative and Healthy Lifestyles program. In Israel, he helped plan an international sustainability summit. And then he also graduated from Cuyahoga Community College's postgraduate program in environmental health and safety. One of his major focus areas was stormwater management, where he led the charge here in our local community. And last but not least, we have Sophia Bugs, who is better known as Ladybugs. She is the proprietor of Ladybugs Farm, a 1.3-acre urban farm located on the south side of Youngstown, Ohio. Her gifts are specialty crop farming, wild crafting, and fermenting traditional foods. Sophia shares her urban wellness and farming information through cooking classes, gardening classes, spiritual consultation, and farmers markets. I'm going to ask each one of them to come up in that order and present us with your information, and then we're going to proceed to our question and answer period. So Allyson, would you please come up first?
Good evening. Can you guys hear me? It is such an honor to be here this evening for the Race, Food, and Justice Conference. I'd first like to just thank EHW, Kim Foreman, and the sponsors for having me here. I'm really excited to talk to you guys and offer a youth perspective on the current affairs of our society and our community. Earlier today, I had the opportunity to talk with the Provost Scholars for Case Western Reserve, coming from East Cleveland high schools and middle schools. And that was really an honor. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Wendy, for allowing me to speak to them today. They told me today about a lot of their concerns about the state of our communities, their concerns about our politics, and they also told me that they sometimes feel like they don't get heard by the people who lead our communities, heard by their parents, their grandparents. They feel like some of the things that they are concerned about aren't heard or aren't respected. And so today I also hope to be able to amplify their voices in our discussion. So as it was mentioned, when I was 17 years old, I went to Howard University to study political science and community development. And also at 17, I made the decision to pursue political office. Unfortunately, I was not yet registered to vote at 17, but that's just a minor setback, right? And I didn't want to run for office because I'm like insanely ambitious, although some people might tell you I am. And I also wasn't bored with my studies. And so you might ask, why would a 17-year-old want to run for office in Washington, D.C.? And the truth is, I was afraid. I was concerned, I was worried. I was worried about the problems that were facing that community. In Washington, D.C., as many of you may know, affordable housing is a joke. It is almost non-existent, right? Gentrification has destroyed that once chocolate city and turned it into something that is not recognizable to those who've been there for a long time. I saw families that reminded me of mine. My mom is here, Allyson Carpenter, and she raised me and my sister as a single mom. And we, over the years, experienced housing insecurity. We moved several times just because of the cost of housing between Cleveland and Atlanta. And so DC presented those same problems, but on a scale that's unimaginable. And so when I saw single moms like my mom, who were struggling to pay rent, who were being forced out of the neighborhoods that they've known, I felt called to act. And at 17, that meant for me calling up my elected officials. That meant talking to people in the community that I respected about ways in which they could change the problem, could address the problem. And the one thing that I kept hearing is, well, we just don't have the money for that. We don't have the money for this. And so today, the name of my speech is called People Over Profit. And in today's discussion, I hope to introduce a new vision for the way we tackle problems in society, a way that isn't in line with capitalistic ways of thinking, but I think necessary to addressing any of the problems that we'll discuss later on in this conference. But again, people kept talking to me about, we don't have the money for this, or that isn't financially sound, and we can't afford a set minimum wage. We can't increase the minimum wage because that doesn't work well for our business community. That doesn't help us with our bottom line. I pose to everyone today to consider establishing a new bottom line in our own work, in our own organizations, our own businesses, a new bottom line that isn't about the dollar amount, but about the general well-being of people who should be at the center of our work. For me, DC is in many ways a cautionary tale for major cities who are pursuing economic development. It is what results when our leaders place profit over people. And it is not something that you arrive at suddenly, but it's something that you arrive at gradually, decision after decision. In the 1980s, President Reagan introduced a very dangerous idea. As you guys know, trickle-down economics, right? Trickle-down economics, although so closely associated with Republican governing, is something that we have allowed so-called progressive Democratic leaders to get away with for decades. We have allowed at a local level for the people who lead our cities, even if they look like us, to get away with trickle-down politics. And here's what I mean. I'm not going to just say this without backing it up, but we have. After the riots in the 60s and into the 70s, our cities, major cities, were nearing bankruptcy, especially in New York City in 1975. We're nearing bankruptcy. And so they decided that the lesson to be learned after their financial situation was we need to shift gears. We can't be about community development. We need to switch toward economic development, which is a fancy word, and we're going to break it down today. Economic development. And so what they decided is that we need to expand our tax base. We need to attract ways to bring in money so that we can finance all of these social programs, so that we can be able to pay for, food stamps. We can pay for these programs. We need more money, right? And that sounds amazing. It sounds so humanitarian, but we're going to explain why it's not. Their economic development, I'm sorry to say, but has proven to be a complete myth. We have not seen the returns on economic development. And here's what I mean. The idea that you would attract a business or attract businesses or attract corporations to your neighborhood with the goal of sustaining social programs, sustaining welfare programs, it puts the people second. First, we'll invest in attracting Amazon to our region, right? And then those jobs that it creates will trickle down and employ the people in our community. First, we'll pay for, and I'm not attacking anyone directly, so don't think this is a shot at anyone, but first, we'll pay for the arena, right? First, we'll subsidize the gym for the Cavaliers, or maybe not the Cavaliers, maybe the Washington Wizards. Let's stick in DC. First, we'll put our money there. And then we'll see how it trickled down, and we'll see wages somehow just miraculously jump, right? Well, let's wait for the trickle down. And I'm calling it that because that's exactly what it is. And it's not as obviously awful as the Republican plan, where you just cut taxes for the wealthiest in society and then hope that trickles down in some weird way. But it's the same thing. It's giving a break to those who already have, right? Those who are already doing a lot better than us, and hoping that somehow, through some undefined economic theory, that money will find itself in the pockets of those who need it most. It's a myth, and it's something we must stop. It's something we must interrupt. It's something that we must call out. So, back to my point. Our so-called progressive leaders have gotten away with this, and for too long. And so when we look at the problems that are affecting our communities now, lack of affordable housing, food deserts, right? So earlier today, I can't see where she is, but during our Provost Scholar meeting, someone called out why the word food desert is so incorrect, right? It implies that the resources are not there in the community, but somehow when a different group of people move into a neighborhood, there's grocery stores, there's Starbucks. Well, if it's a desert, it would imply that the resources were not there to be cultivated in that community. It's a lie. It's a myth, and we have to call it out. Our schools are failing, wages are stagnant. I guess we're starting to see some slight wage growth, but wages are not anywhere near a living wage, what we consider a reasonable living wage. And yet, when Amazon comes out and says we want to find a new place for our headquarters, our second headquarters, I'm sure you guys read the headlines. People offering $200 million. People in Maryland offered the most ridiculous package. And I'm like, where did you get this money from? Weren't we just talking? Didn't we just have the kids in the street rioting and protesting and asking for you to address some of our most basic needs? And you didn't have it then. So where did this money come from? Where did it come from? When our teachers were saying, we can't live off of this wage, we need a raise, and you said, we have nothing, pockets emptied. Where did this money come from? And in some cities, like Cleveland, I'll call them out specifically here, some cities didn't even want to be transparent about what they would do with your money, right? So we're seeing a disconnect here, and I want to focus on this because sure, we can talk about Trump, we can talk about 2016 or 2020, but in times like this, where the people who lead the highest levels of our government are hopeless, like we cannot trust in him, I think it's a perfect time to examine the institutions that claim to be for us, right? Trump has made it clear he's not for us, right? He's made it clear that we can just wait until he's out. We can talk about impeachment, we can talk about building a bench. Forget that. I would rather focus on the people who claim to be for me, right? So let's examine the institutions that pretend to be for us. And so that starts, I mean, I'm not going to prescribe to a certain political party here, but Democrats, let's focus on them. Let's take an aim at them, because they're not in power at the federal level, but let's talk about our mayor, let's talk about our council members, let's talk about our state senators. Let's see what they stand for right now. Let's interrogate that. Let's see if they're really invested in putting people over profit. For me, as a 21-year-old, 22 this week, wait for it. For me, that looked like this. I'm a product of Howard University. Is there anyone from Howard here? No? HU, it's the same thing, one family, exactly. So for me, that meant looking at the way my university was dealing with gentrification in Washington, D.C. I go to an HBCU and I went there for a reason. I went there because I said, these are the people that are for me, they were founded for me. Let's see how Howard is gonna stand up when gentrification is in its face. And I soon learned that Howard was way more than just an academic institution, right? Howard was a lot more than just about educating. They were about that money too, right? Howard is one of the largest landowners in Washington, D.C. And so I think our troubles are well known in the media, especially over the last 3 weeks. And it was interesting to me as a freshman 4 years ago to learn that Howard was taking an active role in gentrification in Washington, D.C. And by interesting, I mean devastating. It devastated me because there should be an expectation that we could look to our institutions to be for us even in the time of economic distress or great economic opportunity. And what I found as a 17-year-old idealistic freshman is that my university had betrayed the people they claimed to save. And I say that loving my university, loving Howard, loving the Mecca, loving HBCU culture. But we have to learn to be honest, right? We have to be honest about the ways our institutions are supposed to serve us and hold them accountable when they don't. And so you guys may have heard about the A building takeover from last week. I have a full-time job. I was in the A building for the last week, sleeping on the floor. And a lot of people think that protest was about financial aid fraud. But what is missed is that the students were asking for Howard University to do better by the people of the District of Columbia. They asked for the establishment of a food pantry for homeless people who did not have access to consistent, healthy food. They asked for housing to go toward the homeless problem in Washington, D.C. And that's what it looks like to hold accountable the institutions that claim to be for us. We slept on the floor for 9 days. I was there for 5. Eventually, you have to go back to work. But the point is that it's not about the money. There is never going to be any trickle down that happens. We keep waiting, looking up to the heavens for this trickle down that Reagan promised us, that our politicians keep telling us to wait on, and it never happens. And we have to abandon that. The only real investment that we can make is the investment in people. We need leaders who are committed to spitting out democratic talking points, who are not committed to keeping the status quo, but those who are committed to disrupting a system, committed to radical change that puts people first. How does a government that exists only with the consent of the people treat the people as a secondary or tertiary consideration? How do we allow that? When we talk about food deserts, how do we allow, DC, I'm gonna use DC as an example so I don't hurt any feelings. DC has a $2.4 billion surplus, money in the bank, in the reserves, right? That's extra. They have $2.4 billion and 10,000 people will sleep on the streets tonight. How do you explain that? How do you justify it? You can't. In wards 7 and 8, which are the southeast and southwestern parts of DC, right? The place where black people are left. They have one grocery store in the entire region. I know that if you're not familiar with the area, that sounds crazy, but like, it's just not a single grocery store in Ward 8. How do we justify that? And so this is just proof that it's not, the answer isn't money. It's not, we have the money, but people are no longer our center. People are no longer our concern. And so when I talked to those students earlier today and I heard what they thought about their community, we asked them, what are some words that you associate with East Cleveland? And I won't even say the words, but it was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking because though it's not always about money. We are so disconnected, as one student said. We're so disconnected from what's going on, from our students, from people. And until we force our institutions, and I'm not just talking about government, I'm talking about our churches, I'm talking about our schools. Every part of our experience needs to be brought back to what truly matters. And as a young person, I'm excited to be able to have this discussion because I think so much of our divide that happens, the generational divide, the racial divide, I think people are not squarely focused on people, which is weird, right? We should be concerned about ourselves, but we become too attached to things that are less important. I'm willing to make a guarantee that an investment in people will lead to a trickle down. I know that I've already said trickle down isn't real, but I take that back. A trickle down will happen when we invest in people, when we invest in our single mothers, when we invest in our teachers, right? But higher wages for people. I think we'll see a trickle down. We'll see better schools. We'll see better communities. We'll see better churches, I think our society will be enriched if we decide that it's not Amazon that deserves a $200 million package, but it's our mothers and our fathers who deserve that $200 million investment. It's our teachers. I am here to propose a different radical shift in a trickle down that people are so hesitant to try because it doesn't always result in votes. And if we're being real, if we're being honest about why is it that Amazon gets $200 million when everyone else who's asked for the investment has been ignored, it's because that's how fragmented our political system has become. And so I know we have some elected officials in the room, and so, well, I'm a former elected official, so I get to do this. But I want to just really charge the people who are in positions of power to look at, if you're the leader of a business owner, if you're the leader of a nonprofit, is every decision that you're making considering how it will affect the people, how it will affect those who live at the margins of society, those who have the least. How will this impact them? It's so crazy to see because when I was a commissioner, we had a ton of interns, none of them paid, right? How is that consistent with my message? Right? I'm talking about we need wage growth. Well, what about the wage growth for the people who are doing labor for us? And so I think that we really have to ask ourselves, we need to establish a new bottom line, right? And that new bottom line has to be one that asks ourselves, does this help people? We have to stop taking the cheapest option because that is what's destroying our society. Economic development is a myth. We cannot continue to allocate resources to attract more money to come to our cities so eventually that money can get down to little old me and little old you. Community development, developing people, developing families, developing our neighborhoods has to be our goal. And so I'm really excited about this conference as we look at food through a social justice lens, look at racial justice through these different lenses. But again, as a young person, I'm asking for people to work together. We need a multi-generational approach here. When I heard those voices today, I wish they were here today to meet you guys, but they are our future. They are the most brilliant people who have the solutions for what's happening in their community, and what they need is your support. What I need is your support, but also us coming together, and people always say the wisdom of the elders and the energy of the youth. I think that we all have energy now. I mean, 2016 was an eye-opening time for a lot of people. And I think that coming together and shifting our focus away from money and toward each other, and figuring out how we can be better neighbors, better partners in this, I believe that that is the way forward. But again, I'm so grateful to have been invited here to speak to you all today, and I look forward to engaging you more during the question and answer period. So thank you so much. People over profit, establishing a new bottom line. Thank you.
Need to feed our planet. Paintings from the arts teacher.
Woke up this morning, look and behold, I see the sea going through that black gold, and I feel alright. I feel alright. I feel alright. I feel alright. Woke up this morning, look and behold, I see a sea going through that black gold, and I feel alright. I feel alright. I feel alright. I feel alright. So now I can work my own land, feed my own clan, grow my own whatever, be my own man, change my own block, sustain my own crop, maintain my own plot. With this green in the ghetto, with this green in the ghetto, with this green in the ghetto, change my own block, sustain my own crop, maintain my own plot. With this green in the ghetto, work with her. Mother Earth can get bitter from the drilling and the spilling, pollution and all the littering. Only if we choose, only to reuse things that we use, but too many refuse. And in the end, Earth win and we lose. Judgment against men and what we abuse. If they close the doors of your food and medicine, you'll be banging on the doors like, please let us in. And the answer is in the ground where you stand, and you don't even know how to cultivate the land. And rid all situations of all woes, and open up all doors and watch how it all grows, and change those ghettos from right under your toes, and let the roots reach deep through that black gold, through that black gold, gold, gold. Let the roots reach deep through that black gold. Woke up this morning, look and behold, I see a sea going through that black gold, and I feel alright. I feel alright. I feel alright. I feel alright. Woke up this morning, look and behold.
How's everybody doing this evening? Excellent, excellent. It's so good to see everybody's face in the place this evening. Welcome to the Race, Food, and Justice Conference 2018. Let's give Kim and the team and our first presenter a warm round of applause. I like it, my sister said, a new bottom line. I like the way that sounds. We're gonna make that happen. Definitely want to acknowledge all of those folks in the audience, to our distinguished senator. Thank you for the kind introduction. To all of our friends and guests, partners, team members, people committed to the green movement, everybody in the house, just greetings and love and peace to all. Again, my name is Keymah Durden. I'm one of the co-founders of the Rid All Green Partnership. My topic tonight is local leadership, global impact. This is huge. Implementing new models to transform communities. That's a whole mouthful, ain't it? Now see, I'm one of those speakers, I like audience participation. I kind of feed off the energy. So if y'all could work with me a little bit, we could all loosen up and have a real good presentation this evening. So just quickly, a little backstory on Rid All. Rid All Green Partnership was started by a group of childhood friends on the east side of Cleveland that we actually grew up together. You know, people say, oh, I grew up with him, and they might have went to the same school or just knew each other, but when we say we grew up together, we really, really grew up together, like played with each other every day, did things together, lived on the same block, had sleepovers from the time we were about 5 or 6 years old, even to this very day. So that's really been one of the beauties of the Rittal Green Partnership and the work that we do, is because we get to work with the same people that we've been with our whole lives. You know, I think Warren Buffett was quoted as saying he skips to work every day because he enjoys what he does. Well, I feel the same way about the Rittal Green Partnership and the team members that represent Rittal. If you could just stand if you're here so we can acknowledge the Rittal team that's in the house. And our whole drive and goal has been, how do we transform communities? How do we go into areas that we come from? Because we didn't want to come parachuting in like no paratroopers to save the day. We wanted to go to places where we came from, and we wanted to embrace communities that wanted to be saved. Because sometimes there's the apprehension that folks know what communities need without asking them. And we just believe that you should ask, or at least have some sensitivity to the community that you're going to embrace. And that's one of the things we fundamentally believe in. We've been in place now for about 10 years. It seemed like 10 years went by so fast. So fast. I can't believe how fast it went by, but it's been a great 10 years. When we got started 10 years ago and we started moving around and the name Rittal came up, that was born from Damien's exterminating company. And his whole stance from the very beginning was, no matter what we had to do, we had to keep the name. Because he saw Rittal as this international brand, and lo and behold, that's what it became. So people would say, Rittal, I don't see how that matches with agriculture, and I don't see the fit. But Damien said we want to keep the name, so did we keep the name, team? Yes, we kept the name, so it's still Rittal Green Partnership. And what we did is we created an acronym from Rittal. So Rittal is an acronym for Redeem, Integrity, and Determination for All Mankind. So we spun that and made it really work for us on that regard. All right, I'd like to start my presentation with this slide. Pretty interesting slide, huh? Well, this is, the person responsible for this picture is Elon Musk. He is a billionaire. I think he's like the 53rd richest person in the world. But he had a goal that he wanted to send a rocket into space. And in the top of the rocket, he had his Tesla Roadster that's now somewhere floating probably off to Mars somewhere by now. This happened in February of this year. And I put this slide up for two reasons, audience. One, I put it up because it's even my screensaver on my computer, right? And I do this because it reminds me that anything is possible. That if you could, he had an idea that he wanted to send his Tesla Roadster into space, and now it's in space. So anything you could conceive in your mind, you can achieve. You just have to believe in it deep enough, be willing to put in the work, and you guarantee you're gonna get the results that you're looking for. So that reminds me, that keeps me inspired daily, you know, to keep pushing toward my dreams and our visions. But the other thing it reminds me of, that if we don't pay attention about what's going on in our world, that there's some very wealthy people that's going to use all the resources of the earth and take off and head to the moon and leave us here with nothing left. So it's kind of bittersweet. It's very inspiring, but it's also a wake-up call that we got to keep doing this work that we do every day. I want to lead in with a story about David and Goliath, because it makes me think about local leadership, global impact, implementing new models to transform communities. And for those that know or don't know, this was a story of David and Goliath. David was a shepherd. Goliath was a Philistine giant. He was defeating Israel in war. No matter who they sent his way, he was able to defeat them. David was the younger of his sons, of his family. His brothers were out going to war, fighting Goliath, who was slaying everybody in their path. So as the youngest, David was the care of sheep. And he would go and take food and provisions to the soldiers that were fighting. And so his brothers, or reports were coming back from the warfare, from the battle zone, that it's this giant out there that's just dogging us. He taking everything, he beating up everybody, he having his way. Nobody can beat him. what are we going to do? So David's response was simple. He went to the battlefield, and his question is there not a cause, right? And mind you, when he heard about the situation, he just didn't walk to the battlefield. The way the story reads, it said he ran to the battlefield to see who was this person that was persecuting his people. And I say that because in this same movement, this green space that we in, we pose the same question to you this day. Is there a cause? Is there a reason for us to wake up and go dig in the soil every day? Is there a reason for us to go and do these kind of conferences? Because our situation is telling us something. And the young sister hit it on the head that if we're able to listen to what our circumstances is saying, it's really a call to action. Because there's so much work to be done. People always talk about urban farming and say, would you like to see more urban farms? Of course, we would love to see 1 million urban farms around the country. Because if we could get healthy, nutritious food into the mouths and the stomachs of people in urban communities, that would be a win for everybody, right? So when I'm reminded of this story, I say, is there not a cause? Because that's what keeps us moving and motivated and inspired at Ritall every day, because we know that there is a cause for what we're doing. And we wake up every morning and we run to the battle. Because there are giants out there. And the giants may come under Monsanto. They may come under, you name it. You know, the Ford, Tyson, Chicken Company, whatever, you picked it, you picked your giant. But they out there. And when you look at them sometimes, it seems like, how could what we doing on 83rd and Kinsman even compete to what Monsanto's billions of dollars can do? But it can. And we wake up every morning and we run to the battle because we believe we can. And then the victory was completed by 3 smooth stones. And the way it said he took 3 smooth stones and sunk them in his forehead. I mean, you could just kind of visualize that, a stone sinking in this big giant's forehead that nobody could compete. So it just inspires all of us to continue to do this work every day, that we know that we can win and that there's opportunities for us. Our passions also rest on the work of our elders, of those that came before us like George Washington Carver, who, to many that do know or don't know, he's famous for the peanut, but he was really a soil scientist. And his real claim to fame was that cotton had depleted the soil so bad that people couldn't grow anything in the soil after cotton was farmed. So peanuts was a plant that was planted to reinstill nutrients back inside of the soil. And then because there were so many peanuts, it was like, something we got to do with all these peanuts. So he started making, different type of things from the peanuts that was made. So when we talk about the work that we do, we always acknowledge those that came before us because we're modern day soil scientists. That's what we do. We put our hands in the soil every day because we believe that that's the way that we're going to regenerate ourselves is through the soil. You say that's where we came from, right? All right. So I want to go here and talk about our unique generation. The world that we live in is changing so fast. There's so much going on. It's almost hard to keep up some days. And some days the things that you see in the news and whatever, you don't even really want to watch the news some days because it's just so much, that tries to bring you down. But I'll make a couple comments here that I want us to consider. As each generation awakens to the realities that they have been born into, they are called to respond to the demands of their time. Now, many of us in this room come from various different generations. And each generation was confronted with a set of different realities, right? The people that was born in the 50s don't have the same reality that the people was born in the 1990s. Is that true? Yes. Remember, I'm an energy person. Y'all got to work with me now. You got to work with me. We need this. We need this. Because I remember a time, and I hope I'm not dating myself, that when TV used to go off at night. Yeah. Did you all know that? Yeah. Somebody here like, never. What? The nerve of them. How dare they? But TV, about 1 or 2 o'clock at night, TV would go off at night. And it would make this noise like, and you had to go to bed, wasn't nothing else to do. But now, TV stay on 24/7. You can't even sleep, TV still on, it's just constant. So the point I'm making is each generation was a little different. But it said extraordinary generations require extraordinary people, and that's what I see in the room tonight. And that's what I see when I think about all of the people that's involved in this green space. Because there's a million things you could have been doing, but you chose to put your time into your community. And that means a lot. So give yourselves a round of applause, please. So when we talk about generations, then we talk about each generation. We got baby boomers, we got Gen X, millennials. Each generation had their own realities. Whether it was folks coming back from war in Vietnam, and if there's any veterans in the room, we want to thank you for your service. Really appreciate that, because you put your life out there, we understand, and we respect that. Some was born in the civil rights movement. We got others, crack. Who was around when crack hit the streets? It was a whole nother reality, right? It totally transformed our community. But these are generational issues that each generation was born into that they had to face. Black Lives Matter came along, the school shootings. Now gun control is on the thing, on everybody's tongue, right? So these are the different realities that we've had to face as we've gone through the generational changes in life. Now you got the Me Too movement, respect for our women. And then as recently this week, you got Starbucks now, right? So then when you saw something on Facebook that was interesting, there was a picture of Starbucks with the two young men being carried out of Starbucks, and then Martin Luther King being carried out of the cafe. And it was like, wow, so sometimes some generations do face the same things, I guess. But there's still challenges that we have to face, and they will remain upon that group of people if somebody's not brave enough to step up and face those challenges heads on and say, not in my community, not in my house, not in my city. It takes brave people to do that. So I believe that we are the response. Whatever issues we see, we are the response. And we do a lot of work here in the local area, but we also do work internationally. We have a training center in Belize, Central America, in Israel. We have farms in Kenya and Ghana, West Africa. So our reach is wide and broad, and it gives us the ability to interact with a lot of different people from a lot of different cultures. And the interesting thing about it is that farming is like one of the greatest occupations you could be called to do. Because who has the responsibility to wake up every morning and feed the world? Some people don't even want to wake up and feed their children. Like, I ain't cooking no breakfast today, you better throw something in the microwave. But we wake up every morning and say, our job is to feed the world. And a lot of people wake up with other very important things to do. I'm gonna go help people, I'm gonna go doctor, I'm gonna be a lawyer, I'm gonna be many things, but the farmer, he the guy that knows his lifeline and what he does depends on if the world eats or not. And that's a great responsibility, because you can't take 2 or 3 days off. See, the farmer works 7 days a week. He don't never get to stop. I mean, we raise tilapia fish at Ridall. Those fish got to eat every day. So it's a full-time commitment. So whether it's local, whether it's what we do in Cleveland, and recently we formed a relationship with Central State University, where we're doing extension work for Central State all around the state of Ohio. In the last 3 months, we've been to Dayton, we've been to Cincinnati, we've been to Hamilton. Monday, we're going to Toledo, all trying to get this word out. And most of the people that we're talking to is inner city youth. Inner city youth. So we really get a chance to really get a strong message out to our inner city youth. And I got to tell you an interesting story. We went to a school in Columbus. Dr. Greenham was there. He was actually doing the presentation. Now, this was a dropout recovery school. So these students, they actually curse in class. I mean, it was a rough group. So Dave is giving his presentation. He was doing us talking about the soil. So he told them about our black gold. You know, that's our trademark soil. Then he talked about the duckweed. He was like, duckweed? Black gold, y'all ain't farmers, y'all hustling or something. Like, come on. And like, got that duckweed, we got that black gold over here. We couldn't believe it, these guys, but all of the teachers came and said that they had never seen a group of men get these guys' attention like that for that long, talking about what they would call dirt, but we call soil. And they never seen nobody hold their attention that long. Because these babies, they want to know. And sometimes they can't get to you, so sometimes you got to go to them. And that's the thing I neglected to mention about George Washington Carver. See, he was the first one to create a mobile classroom, that he went to the farmers to teach them how to cultivate and till their land so he could turn a profit for them. Because they were sharecropping, some of them had land, but they didn't know what to do with it. So he created a little, first it was a horse and buggy, it turned into something a little more advanced after that, but he would go from city to city to city under Tuskegee's banner and teach farmers about how to farm and how to restore their soil. We doing all right? Yeah. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the worldwide community. And we believe fundamentally at Riddle that most people around the world all want the same basic things. That as we go to Dayton, we see the same stuff. We go to Cincinnati, it's just different cities, different names, same people, same problems. But then when you stretch outside of the states and you go into Africa, Central America, you still see the same people facing some of the same challenges. But we really believe at Riddle that people want the same things. They want fresh drinking water. They want to breathe fresh air. They want a community where they don't have to worry about getting knocked over the head and shot or killed. They want a safe community. And I think that's fundamental to everybody on the planet. And a lot of communities, too, that we have to be cautious of as we go and take this work abroad is that sometimes because cultures don't have the same lifestyle that we have in America, we have to be careful how we judge them. Because sometimes you can go into a community and perceive them as poor, and they never even saw themselves as poor. They didn't know they was poor till you told them they was poor. They're like, oh, I'm poor, dang, I got to do something for myself now. Before that, they didn't, because they knew everybody was the same. There wasn't no difference. There wasn't no upper class and lower class. Of course, they understood that people probably had more, income than them, but everybody in their village or town was all at the same basic level. So they didn't understand or process their reality as poor, as poverty. And we got to be careful as we embrace different communities that we don't prejudge before we understand what they're about, because poverty really is a frame of mind. It's not an economic condition. They all want a basic quality of life. And one of the main things everybody wants is healthy relationships. Folks want to feel connected to family, whether it be husband, wife, brother, sister, family, whatever the case may be. We have an innate sense that we want to have long-lasting relationships. And I bring this up because food will be the longest relationship that you'll have in your life, your relationship with food. You may break up with your husband, your wife, get mad at your mother, your sister, I ain't talking to you no more, get out. But you ain't never gonna have that till food day. You're gonna deal with that food, whether you're mad at him or not, whether you're sick, whether you shut in, you're gonna have a relationship with that food. So what we believe is that make it a good one. Don't make your relationship a volatile relationship with food, the thing that you're most dependent on for your survival. Make it a good relationship. Make good choices. Think about the things that you do. We believe that food is a universal language, that we've had some of our best conversations around the dinner table. That food is the one thing that we believe it strips down all races, strips down colors, creeds. You put some good food in front of somebody, they go, good, even if they don't speak the same language. But we all understand good food and what that means to us, so we can use food to kind of tear down some of these things that keep us separate in the world and in our community. One of my favorite writings, a book called Blessed Unrest. At the top, I have the regenerative ag movement. Now, I use that word because regenerative is a little different than sustainable. Sustainable means to maintain something and don't let it get any worse, right? And some things just need to be eliminated, not maintained at all. But the word regenerative gives the idea that you leave something in a better condition than you found it, that you improve upon it. So when we talk about this whole term, regenerative ag movement, that's saying that this work that we've embraced and that we all communally have agreed to be a part of, that we want to leave the world, our community, our neighborhoods in a better place than what we found them. We don't want to just sustain them like they are, because some of them are not in good condition, right? So we were looking to try to improve those communities, not just sustain them. The point I want to take away from here, and this is from Paul Hawkins, he said that this social justice, this environmental movement is the largest social movement in all of human history. And it doesn't have the face of a leader. There's nobody you could point to in the ag or social justice movement and say, that's the president of the social justice movement. And that's a beautiful thing because it gives a lot of diversity, it gives a lot of freedom of expression because all of the work that people are doing all over the world, it all unites to what? Make the world a better place. So somebody that cares about rice fields in Asia, their love and desire for this planet connects with somebody that cares about the rainforest in Brazil. And all, even though we may never meet face to face, but our combined energy and concern for the planet comes together in a way that helps transform and becomes a protective cover over the planet. And it don't have no president. It don't have everybody in this social justice ag movement as a leader. Because you wake up every day and you make your mind up, today I'm going to do, even if it's a small thing, make the world a better place by doing something better in our community, better in our life. Am I making any sense? Yes. Thank you. But the last thing he said was that it's going to be done by ordinary, everyday people. That is not, though we appreciate and we love in Cleveland and Ohio, it has a very, very good governmental support of agriculture, of urban ag particularly. So we take our hat off to our senator and all those that stand for us in those meetings that say, hey, don't forget about urban ag, because it means a lot. You know, and I'll quote from my co-founder, Randy, one time when he was giving a similar presentation, he said, if you're not at the table, you're probably on the menu. So if we're not at the table, we got to have somebody that we know that's at the table to help represent our interests. So it takes all of us working together. That's what I'm trying to say. All right, I'm moving fast, Kim. All right, all right. I don't want you to be happy to see me twice. Happy to see me come, and happy to see me go. So, but I pose a question here, are we doing enough? Because we stated a lot of good things that's going on and international and all of that, but is it enough? And it's easy for you to say it's enough when you're doing it because at the end of the day, you're tired. That's enough for me for the day. So that's enough, but is it enough to make an impact? And this article that I ran across recently stuck out at me, and it was in the New York Times, and the title of the article was, American Adults Just Keep Getting Fatter. And one of the quotes said, new data shows that nearly 40% of them were obese in 2015 and 16, a sharp increase from a decade earlier. So what this group did, they did a study in 2004, 2005, and 2006, and came back 10 years and did a similar study, and the numbers had increased in terms of people in obesity. So it says public health experts said that they were alarmed by the continuing rise in obesity among adults and by the factor that efforts to educate people about the health risk of a poor diet do not seem to be working. So are we doing enough? Are we really getting this message out to people? Are people really being impacted by it? And that's why these type of conferences, Kim, and the team is so important. Because we got to get the message out there. We got to give people the opportunity to make the right choice. Because if people don't have the right information, they're just going to continue to make the choices that they've been making. Because this is what we confront. This is our reality. When you can buy a Big Mac for 25 cents and you got to pay $2.69 for some apples. Now, you got to convince me, and I'm not hard to convince, but you got to convince me how for 25 cents, you can get 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun for 25 cents. I'm just saying. And then buy one, get the other one at a discounted price. You can't even buy a loaf of bread for 25 cents. So I'm saying there's something in that, but the sad reality of that statement is that people are not making decisions with their heart, they're making decisions with their wallet. And they say, I'm going to buy what I can afford. And in many communities, people are left to buy their food from the same place they buy their gasoline, their lottery tickets, and their beer. It's a new phenomenon in the world called a mini mart, the gas station, the corner store. So these are the realities I face, but what drives this and what helps correct this is education. So I say again from my earlier slide, is there not a cause? Is there still work for us to do? Can we really afford to just roll over and just like it's gonna be okay, and there's nothing that we individually have to do to help move the ball down the court or change the reality of what we see every day? Because we believe that people really, they want the best. You can't show me a person in this room that don't want the best. But the question is, can you afford the best? And we want to make the best affordable for people all around the world, whatever that best for them may mean. But it comes at a price. And that's called caution. Paradigm shift ahead. Now, paradigm is simply a real fancy word to say a set of habits. And for many years, as it relates to food, we've developed a lot of bad habits. And if we're talking about changing the world, changing our community, changing our neighborhood, the first person we're going to have to change is who? Ourselves. And we formed a lot of bad habits. We just have to go on and testify that we did. So here's what I hear. This is the famous statement. I've been a practicing vegan for 25 years. I'm not advocating anybody should do anything but just make healthy food choices, right? But here's the thing you hear all the time. My mama ate pig feet. My grandmama ate pig feet. My great-grandma ate pig feet and lived to be 98. And I'm gonna eat pig feet too. Then I said, well, if you don't eat the pig feet, maybe you can live to be 108. You see what I'm saying? But a lot of it just be bad habits, and because we've been doing it so long. But in the African American community, the original diet was a slave diet. So a lot of those things just carried over just because mama did it, grandmama did it, and her mama did it. But now people are making healthy choices about food. You know, I'm guilty sometimes too. Bad habits, they don't fall far from the tree. You know, David, he caught me the other day. We were having lunch, and he said, first thing people do is grab the salt and pepper. They ain't even tasted food yet. And he was talking about me. He was talking about me. I ain't even taste the food. I'm already sprinkling. Our two biggest enemies are salt and sugar. If we can get salt and sugar under control, we'll be way ahead of the game, because most of the health ailments that affect people in low-income areas of minority people the worst. So we're really gonna have to be brave enough to make some changes in our habits. People say they want better relationship, they want a better diet, you just gotta make some better habits. Everything is about habits. If you break it down that simple, to say, I just gotta start a new set of habits. And the habits is thing you just do every day. If you start doing them every day, it becomes like clockwork. So we really take this to heart because we know there's another generation coming up behind us that we can't afford to pass those habits on to. And if we can get a good message into them at an early age, they got such a better chance of having a better quality of life. We want to eradicate childhood obesity and I never even heard of nothing like that growing up. But so much processed food, we just got to be on the guard. You know, like you guard your house or you lock your car up at night. You know, you got to be on the guard on your refrigerator. Well, come in that door because that's life or death. You can get another car, but you can't get another body. So we know we got another generation up and coming that we really want to get a good message into. So we believe that doing things like showing folks, providing locally fresh food, fish to folks. Now this is just the greatest place to say, if you give a man a fish, I mean, this is like the most shameless time to say this. Well, we're talking about aquaponics and the tilapia that we grow, so it just makes sense. But if you give a man a fish, you'll just be giving him fish forever. But if you teach a man how to fish, you know? So not only do we provide products to the community, we also believe in providing that training. And we don't just want to keep you as a consumer, we want you to be a producer. And particularly what catches the attention of the young children is that they say, oh, I can make money doing it? Yeah, you can make money, young man, young lady. And that really gets their attention. We do composting. On any given week, we'll bring in 25 to 50,000 pounds of food waste every week at our facility. And there's a good side of that and a bad side. The good side is that, well, the bad side is, oh, they're throwing all that food away. It's terrible, and it is. But the good side, we taking it and turning it back into a rich nutritional soil, and we preventing it from going to the landfill. And that soil, once given back to farmers, will actually grow food again. So it like closes the loop and closes the cycle. Closes that cycle. That's our black gold that the students in Columbus was getting all excited about, and that duckweed. Compost, we talk about it as a business model. So our compost is for sale. Now gardeners, planting season, another shameless plug. Come and see us for your soil. We're real big into training and education. We talked about how we've been traveling the state this last few weeks, last few months, going to all counties throughout Ohio, bringing home this message. We got a unique way of teaching. We believe in hands-on. We believe that people learn better when they can put their hands and touch something and move and pick up something. And if we've become such a sedentary community that we rarely move a lot, that when we bring folks to the farm, they're able to stretch and turn and bend and get some sunlight. You know, that the average person could leave their home and spend less than 60 seconds in actual outdoor time. From the time they leave their house, get in their car, drive to work, get out their car, go into work, leave work, get in their car, go back home, get in the house. And if you if you pulling up to your garage and you got a garage door opener, you ain't never been outside. You ain't been outside the whole day. Hands on. We try to do unique and alternative teaching techniques. We created a puppet show. You seen some of it in the video that Kim showed earlier. Because we believe we can get the attention of these children. You know, some of our more senior community members, we may not be able to convince them. Because what did the old folks used to say, or what did the mature folks used to say? You gotta say things right nowadays. You get set in your ways. So some we can, some we can't, but if we can get a message to these babies and get them inspired about recycling, cleaning up your neighborhood, eating the right things. Many of these kids that this one scene was from, we had students from George Washington Carver come to the farm every Tuesday and Thursday for about 4 weeks. And we would really when they first got there, they were so wound up. And we realized after a few weeks in, most of them hadn't even eaten that morning. And if they did eat, they had eaten hot Fritos or super fire Cheetos or something, whatever they eating now. And make it so hard. Because when we grew up, it was just it was just nacho cheese Doritos. Just had one choice. You just had one. You can go in the store and just get one. Now you're standing there for 20 minutes trying to see which Doritos you're gonna pick, because they got so many different flavors now. And the world, didn't I say that each generation has been faced with their own set of realities? You all are too kind. So as we close, we simply say this. We want you to be encouraged. You know, don't let all of the sad news and bad news get you down. Don't let it make you feel like, I ain't going outside no more. Because really, if you think about it, there are more people that make it home safely every day than get hurt. If you look globally at the amount of people moving around every day, there's more people that make it home without getting shot than get shot. So you got to sometimes change the narrative so that you don't get so depressed that you don't even want to do nothing no more, because you get so flooded with so many bad stories that the good stories don't never get out. So we just say be encouraged. And we ask, are you ready? Because there's some things we're going to have to do. A lot of what we've done has been based on traditional models of agriculture and farming, and some new and some innovative. But now as we look forward into the future, we're gonna have to think outside of the box on some things. And I wanna introduce you to this term called climate smart agriculture. And what climate smart agriculture does is it gives you a paradigm of agriculture that talks about a changing world. What does it look like when the Earth's temperature increases another 5 degrees? How will you be able to farm in that environment to a very temperature-controlled plant? Some plants won't even be able to make it if the temperature go up that high. So climate smart agriculture says that it's not a question if the climate is changing. We know the climate is changing. The question now has moved to how do we adjust to it? Because we could spend a lot of time arguing about the problem instead of dealing with what's coming down the road next and get prepared for it so we can still eat. And climate smart agriculture just talked about growing food in a way that deals with it, makes you cognizant of the globe is changing. The earth is heating up, and we have to adjust to that because we live in a very fragile food system that we're one tornado, hurricane, flood, natural disaster away from nothing. In one moment, boom. People do a run on the store, run on the gas, it's nothing. It's very, 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 very fragile. So our answer is, hey, we believe that farming as we teach it is a new survival skill. He said that everybody should know how to grow something. Because worst case scenario, if you're able to grow some items, you're able to at least sustain yourself in the short term. You know, we go back to old stuff like canning. You know, most folks that had parents or grandparents, we all had parents and grandparents, so we wouldn't be here, right? But it seemed like the elders had so much food in the house all the time. I mean, the cabinet was just full. My mom and grandmother, they had deep freezers full of food just for years. I'm like, are we ever gonna eat that food? But it stayed full because they was cognizant that anything could happen at any time. And now we just like one day away from, if anything happened, man, we messed up. So we gotta talk as we go forward about food security. So as I close, I just say that it is hard work, but I think we up for it, because nothing that you get is easy. They say, well, how did you all do it at Riddall? Y'all got this big acre farm and nada. It's just one step at a time. You build a little, then you add on to it. Build a little, add on. It's just that simple. You ain't got to do it all at one time, because we have a tendency only to see endings. And what do I mean by that? We always see people at the height of their career. You don't see when they putting in the hard work, when they family missing them, when they broke, when they crying, when all the fish died. You don't see that because that's not the part of the story that ever get told. But those are the hard things. When you had to work for months with no income, farming is hard. But it ain't so hard that you can't do it, but it's because it's so rewarding. It's one of the most hardest, rewarding things I've ever done in my life. And I really, really mean that. So I just want to thank you for your time. I just say that we are those great men and women of our generation. It's our time now. They've laid a legacy for us, and whoever your hero is, I just picked 3, but whoever your hero is, they made their contribution. Now it's time for us to make ours. We believe that you can't watch the movie and be in the movie at the same time, that you got to get involved. And when you're making history, you don't know it because you're making history. People only talk about it later. But when you're doing it, it don't look like making history. It look like hard work. It look like I'm tired. It look like I ain't finna do this tomorrow. But then when they run the movie, you're like, oh man, that was great. That was beautiful. We could do that all over again. So again, I just thank you. Leave you as I found you in perfect peace. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being kind and listening to all my corny anecdotes and everything. And I just want you to know, Kim, I appreciate all of the work that you do to make this thing happen. And to the audience, again, thank you for your attention and have a great evening. Bye-bye.
Greetings in the spirit of peace. Can you hear me? Well, as you can tell, I've already been outside in this crazy weather, so please bear with me. So my name is Sophia Bugs, and I'm the owner, operator, and the sole proprietor of Ladybug's Farm, located on the south side of Youngstown, Ohio. I'm what is considered an urban homesteader, and I love every minute of it. Urban homesteading is something very interesting, and I'm sure that you all have some programs that's similar to where, let's say,
You own a home, and maybe next to your home there's a vacant lot that you can adopt and grow some things on it. So with you being adjacent to or close by, you actually have access to doing something really incredible. So before I continue, I first need to thank the ancestors, those who came before me, which are my grandmother, my grandfather, and the people who own the land in which I grow on. I make sure that every time I walk my butt out there, I say thank you. Because a lot of those people were hardworking individuals in the valley who were making ends meet to keep their neighborhoods beautiful and safe. But something happened, and blight took over, and they knocked their homes down. So I'm reaping the benefits of someone else's hard labor at some point. Education. I graduated from Bethune-Cookman College University in Daytona Beach, Florida. And I also have a master's in education, which is in curriculum instruction. And I had to make that statement because I want something to be understood when it comes to growing food is education. As he mentioned before, there's a continuum that must happen. We must learn to educate ourselves when it comes to being sustainable and moving forward in the world of agriculture. I'm also considered a specialty crop grower. I have a specialty crop apprenticeship through the Ohio State, which basically gave me some online training where I can do some science stuff, and it also gave me some networking. And in the networking process, I was able to be a lead farmer for a specialty group that worked for cognitive disabled adults and small children when it comes to agriculture. One thing for sure about Ohio is they love children, and there are lots of information around making sure adults are able to get their needs met when they have at least one thing that's possible for themselves. So the group that I was working with, for instance, if they had some mental issues or if they had some physical disabilities, we know that they can also do container gardening. We know that sometimes they can go to Target, hang things up on rack. So it was also part of an adult program that focused on creating business for themselves, making money for themselves, and they fell in love with agriculture when I got a chance to get my hands on them. Excuse me. One of my specialties that was mentioned is wildcrafting. Wildcrafting is something that most people who are into probably urban homesteading or herbs or wellness, it's a great way to get yourself involved in nature, especially when you're in the city. Wildcrafting really means that you take enough, but you leave enough, because there are some plants that are still trying to propagate themselves to be enough to grow for the next season. So a lot of us are into health foods. Let's say salt palmetto, whew, they over-harvested it. So now the price is astronomical. So if we don't take care of these indigenous plants, and I'm gonna say indigenous to your backyard, then what will happen is they'll do like the folk who can't eat their own quinoa, or people in the Fiji Islands who can't drink their own water. One day you might not be able to eat your own dandelions because a company owns them. So it's important that we preserve the things that are there that are medicinal and healthy and local. I also do cooking classes. My cooking has always been a little bit unique because it's kind of fused with how I was raised and probably a newer way of eating, a little bit more healthy, eating a rainbow with contrasting colors. But more importantly, I focus that you should be eating things that are local, things that are in season, and things that are fresh. So I do cooking classes throughout the city so that I can help people kind of make a bigger connection to urban agriculture or the local foods movement. I'm not for sure specifically where you are in Cleveland. Yes, I am. Cuyahoga is a lot of farms. So where I'm at, we're like 15, 20 minutes away from farms. I don't know how it ever happened that we no longer have farmers come into the city to get produce. Like farmers markets kind of left, which brings me back to the beginning story of how I became an urban farmer and why. Me originally being from the south side of Youngstown, Ohio, there were no jobs, and so my mother took me to South Florida. And there, what we did was we learned just basically how to survive. Me being in that area, I lived there for half of my life. And after I obtained all my degrees and got my career going, worked as a lactation consultant for the state of Florida, I taught at Full Sail University. Honestly, I wasn't very happy because it was about the bottom line, which is the dollar. And I had a small daughter at the time. I was very, very depressed. And no one knew that because I wore many faces. I smiled at work. I did what I was supposed to do to get the pay rate and then come home. I even made my family happy by going to college, being the first to go to school. But Sophia wasn't happy at all. But one of the things I've always dreamt about was nature and the environment. I would watch PBS, I look at True Grit magazine, Mother Earth magazine, and I would dream. And I never ever imagined that one day that I would have my own space to grow whatever I wanted to grow on. So talking about dreams coming back again. With that being said, I wholly believe in the laws of attraction. The more you beat the drum of a thing, the more you're gonna get. So if you say, I don't want it, the universe says, I'm gonna give you more of what you don't want. But I don't want that, I'm gonna give you more. I don't want it. But if you say, I am where I am, and where I'm at is now, but tomorrow to be better, the universe says, I'm gonna give you better. You gotta bump yourself up to attract what you deserved. And I honestly believe that's what happened. I willed myself off of those jobs. I was very unhappy. And they were wonderful jobs with a nice 401k, making everybody happy but me. But when I lost the love of my life, my grandmother, the person whose footsteps I'm following in, after coming home and burying my grandmother, I went back to Florida to discover I'd been laid off of both of my other jobs. And because Florida is the state where they don't have to give you a reason, you're just laid off. I thought I was gonna cry. Everybody in the office was crying. My mother crying. But something about this freedom I was ready to embrace. Something about it. And my ancestors, they never left me high and dry. So I knew that it had to be something bigger and better because that was huge. So the first message I got was, go back home. And when I said go back home, every relative that I didn't even know I had called me and said, don't you come back to Youngstown. Don't you think, no you don't. My mother said, we are gonna clean this little room out. You and a baby gonna come live with me, and we all gonna make this work. And I said, no, I don't live with people. I take care of myself. And I'm gonna go to a place where I can find some peace. Because Youngstown, and I'm sure you're familiar with this, a place where you could be gone a week and they'll strip your house. We had just lost my grandmother, and that was the only thing that we had in our entire family that was left that was our family. From dead relatives, from addictions, to properties we lost because people jumped bail. That was it. So I decided to go back home and stake claim what my grandmother left. So I brought my butt back to the south side of Youngstown. My mother wasn't very happy with me. My father insisted I go back. My relatives shook their head. But as you know, I was watching This Old House for a long time. You know, and I just thought I could do it. I could fix some sinks and lay some floor and paint some walls. But I wasn't realizing that this was more than just coming into a home, turning the lights on, making sure your AC work, and say, I'll take it. I returned to a very old house that was built in 1912. Floors were falling in, walls were being caved in from old AC units hanging in the windows. The list goes on and on and on. But one thing that was for certain in that house that was humming, and that was that furnace. The last thing my grandmother bought. And if any of y'all know how important a furnace is, especially if you coming from Florida, it was everything. It was my hope that I could make it happen. We lived room to room. And from living from room to room, we painted, we sealed, we taped, we jacked up, we did it all. And then from there, where I was very depressed, thinking, what will I do with myself? However will I capture this purpose? Why did I leave Florida? There's nothing here. And that was it, nothing. There was nothing, a place to begin. So I said, you know what? My grandmother had zucchini bread cranking out her oven every year. I'm doing zucchini bread. So I thought, ooh, I gotta learn to grow zucchini, don't I? Had to learn how to grow zucchini. I said, as soon as the weather breaks, I'm gonna go in the backyard and I'm gonna start my grandma's garden. Well, the weather broke. And because my grandmother was sick, she had pulled up all the trees and gravelled in the entire backyard. So I was like, okay. I don't know if I'm gonna grow something back here in this gravel. But because I'm one of those people that just kind of innovative, I said, well, I'm gonna look this up. Maybe I can grow in a container, voila. There was something called container gardening. So I was overachiever and got 13 kiddie pools. I was too busy to think about my depression. I was very much so interested that my own community in which I was raised didn't know that you shouldn't eat from your corner store, you should go to a grocery store. Like, that didn't make sense to me. That I wouldn't just go to the nearest store because it was there. I would go to a grocery store. I noticed that the neighbors that were still there were buying their cigarettes, getting their gas, their liquor, and their overpriced foods at a really dirty, nasty store. I couldn't understand that. So because I saw it, I thought, well, maybe I can share it. 13 kiddie pools, I'll try my hand. First things I tried my hand with were more herbs and some small plants. And a lot of those was the plants that my grandmother grew. Well, a couple churches heard what I was doing. People kept dropping off kiddie pools. So I guess they thought, oh, excuse me, what did I do? And I guess they thought I was some kind of hope in the neighborhood. So I was like, okay, I'll take these kiddie pools and keep, So finally someone said, well, what are you gonna do when you run out of room? And I thought, oh my goodness, I don't know what to do. So then I cut some boxes, crate boxes in half, and started making borders. And then I thought, I've got a property line of fencing here. I wonder if I could put more kiddie pools over the fence. Well, by then, something has said to me, this is beyond container gardening. And the word farming just fell out of my mouth. And so people were saying, oh, if you cut it, they'll give it to you. And y'all know that's a lie. So I went downtown saying, who do I talk to borrow the land to just grow some things? I said, I'll clean it up and I'll grow some things. They said, talk to Lean Forward, Ohio. Lean Forward, Ohio is now our Mahoney County Land Bank. And I'm ever so grateful for the people who were in place then. Those are my partners now. When they were in the beginning stages of trying to figure out green space in Youngstown, and I was one of the folks to say, hey, this is a project that could work. So in that project, they were allowing you to apply for the lots and do whatever you needed to do as long as you were in compliance with zoning. Well, a couple of the people heard what was going on, and some folk went downtown and blessed me to purchase land, but they was anonymous. So when I figured out that one, land is the most highest commodity we got. And if you're already farming or urban homesteading, if you're not growing soil, you are not farming. Because you have to buy it once it's eroded. And with all of the things happening with our water system, okay, and if you're in city spaces, if you're not able to keep your topsoil there because of what other non-educational things you don't have to keep your soil, you're a challenged grower. Challenges always happen on farms because that's nature. So I knew I needed to get a proper education to maintain something that was being gifted to me. So in the process of being gifted, they pulled out to say, well, we can't take care of all of it. So it was back on my plate to say, am I gonna purchase the space or not? By then, when they became a land bank, we've discovered that it was actually 9 lots. So I have access to 1.3 acres of growing space, and that is where I live. It's my backyard and a half of a block. And I'll say that my growing space, my project is probably on 4 to 5 lots. Small hoop house, some raised beds, some bigger beds, some amazing trees. And from me growing there, I brought pollinators. And before growing, it was green. No lilacs, no red raspberries, no catalpa trees. All of those things are now back growing because of the pollinators I brought with a couple of plants. Well, because I remember what it was like working for corporate America per se. I liked my own time and my freedom. And I loved how I got lost in the soil and how I didn't have to worry or think about worrying other things. It was good exercise. My body felt better. I was growing my own food, going to the grocery store less, talking with more people, speaking for people in ways I didn't realize. And all of the things that I thought my undergrad and my master's wouldn't award me, it showed up in agriculture. So that's why I'm overly qualified to teach in the area in which I teach, because that's what I was born to do. And as this brother mentioned before, you work all day. Before I left, I had to put somebody in charge to get my starts out that hoop house. We have to always have an eye on our growing space because we're committed to feeding you. That commitment is something our ancestors gave us. And a lot of us will not abandon that project, just so you know. I also wanted to share with you is when we stop having a conversation, it takes 2 generations to not do it. That's why we're not doing it. 2 generations. So my cousins and my aunties and uncles got caught out in the streets. So that's why we don't have the family reunion. Big Ma's gone. And now who's left? Our children. So when I go to East High to talk to the children about urban agriculture, they ask me all the time, are you a slave? And it's a real question because their history books only tell them that that's what agriculture is. So I'm fortunate to bring them to my home to show them plum trees and apple trees and show them our regimen. And I got a couple young brothers that say they want a pickled pepper business. That made my heart just jump all over the place. So they've got to see themselves in the soil. They've got to see us reclaiming it again. And I was having a conversation with someone and they ask this question all the time. How could we get this back? It has to be wanted by you. You have to want it enough that you invest in your healers and your farmers and your small businesses that keep money in your neighborhoods. We can't keep beating the drum that they're gonna bring another grocery store. Let's grow our own. And I'm sure we can still remember people with gardens. It might not be hundreds, but there are people with gardens. So in the business of work that I do, and not that I shun nonprofitcy, but as an urban homesteader, I stay out of nonprofitcy because I don't like to act right. Okay? And I think it's important of talking and highlighting my ancestors. And it's important having conversations that won't award me the money. So with that being said, I must break even to at least continue in the next year. So it's a lot of thinkings. Farmers are very intelligent people. You have to be. You have to be a scientist. You have to be a money manager. All of those things. We're healers. You name it, that's what we do. And I love doing the work that I do. Lastly, my bottom line is joy, not my spreadsheet. I feel so good that I'm convinced you're not gonna get my money at the hospital. I'm gonna spend my time doing what I wanna do. I love it. I love that. Let me be an example for you to have your own side garden, your own community garden, your own urban homestead. Let the soil be your freedom. A lot of us here in these cities have lots of space you can reclaim. And in the beginning, it's hard work. I've seen grown men cry in my soil. It will break you. I've had young boys ask me, why is it that you can shovel more than I do? Because I have ownership and passion. My daughter's name is Passion. With those two things, I can out-shovel anybody. And with your ownership and owning your own community, you too will feel responsible to plant and do for yourself. Agriculture will teach you a lot. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the invitation. And I'm looking forward to talking to you all.
Oh, we already have. Okay, got it. All right, I'm so excited after listening to all of you all. I feel like I've learned so much. So I'm just proud to be here on this stage with you guys. What we're going to do, we're going to start off with a couple of questions, and then we'd really like to hear from you all, to hear your questions and get some feedback from our panelists. So we heard a lot today. I'm going to start off with one question. Since urban farming has become the new in thing, we know a lot of people have tried their hand at it. And you were just in East Cleveland today. You might have saw some of those hoop houses that were out there, and they're all over the city of Cleveland. A lot of people have tried it and they failed. So I want to hear what you think is the best way to have a successful, sustainable urban farm or homestead. That's the first question. And I know Riddle, when you guys first started out, nobody wanted to give you guys a chance. You went to the city of Cleveland, you went to many of the developers, there was land that nobody wanted to use, and when you all went to try to use it with your idea, they told you no. That's right. And so you tried and tried and tried. How do you convince somebody that urban farming is the best way to go here in our communities? And anybody can start out.
Okay. Good question. There's a lot of funding, a lot of healthy initiative grants that will help organizations grow food. And the first thing people want to get is a hoop house because it looks big and exciting. They are very innovative, and it's an amazing tool. But you have to make sure that whoever's building your high tunnel, they build it for your lifestyle. I just said that. You're out there every day. So if you've got some type of a high tunnel or a low tunnel with poly UV fabric, you need ventilation or you need circulation. So that meant either you need to be running electricity out there, right? Or someone needs to be out there rolling up those sides, because those tunnels can be 120 degrees, which will burn your plants up. So I will say this: educate yourself on your capacity. There you go. So if you can't be out there at the crack of dawn, you need to know that. Let your tools extend what you can do, as opposed to, oh, I want to look big and fancy like them. I think I learned a lot from watching other urban farms want and also get more funding than I got, and then their projects failed because the people either walked away who actually had the wisdom to maintain them, or you didn't have the actual insight to use them. Taking advantage of your extension agents' education, or myself, farmers education. We do it all the time. Saturdays, show up at the farm. We're gonna teach you plant propagation. If you're not showing up to be educated on how to have successful plants, how to work that through labor and time, then you're gonna find yourself out there too long, overworked with 2 plants. So sustainability is not just you put something in the ground. You need to be able to match it with your labor. What can you do? Are you a person that needs physical tools? Can you get down on your hands and knees? Are you working with a spade shovel? Are you borrowing tools? Are your tools in a place that they're not stolen? I actually have to walk my tools outside every day because I don't have a garage. That's an hour and a half before I get into the work of my day. Are you up for that? So you need to make sure that you've got the capacity to do the work. So it's okay to start with small plots and grow. And in this case, these gentlemen have, I believe, each person can do an acre if they put their mind to it. These gentlemen have the capacity of not just themselves that they physically doing, they probably know at least one other person that said, I got you. Call me if you can't get out there at 7 o'clock in the morning. So having a good network. Keymah?
Only thing I would add is that you really need a good team. You gotta have a great team because most people that are farmers, and I'm saying this with the highest level of respect, are not particularly business people. And you gotta run a farm as an entrepreneur as you would any other entrepreneurial business. I would say don't order a hoop house, don't put nothing in the ground till you put something on paper. Look at your projections, look at your time, look at your finances, because those are the things that come back and haunt you later that will allow you not to complete your project. And then the third thing is that you gotta go and seek the proper training. Because farming is a lot, and if you don't really pay close attention to it, you'll get overwhelmed and won't be able to finish the project.
Excellent, excellent. Allyson, you want to answer that one, or you want to go to the next one?
Let's go to the next. I'm inspired by what I'm learning today.
Well, Allyson, you inspired us as well. Let's see here. A new bottom line. Yes, ma'am. You have a lot of things to say on that. Wealthy people get the resources and take it to the moon. Keymah. We cannot wait on trickle-down economics. So let me say this. Last year we had an election. You mentioned the Q deal and some other things. Last year we had an election. As most of you know, we have approximately 375,000 people that live in the city of Cleveland. We have about 275,000 people who are registered to vote. And we had approximately 38,000 who actually turned out in the mayoral election. Now, you mentioned a lot of things in your comments, both of you did, but what I would like to know is, what are the top 3 priorities that should be addressed in communities of color, poor communities, it does not matter. And how would you encourage those people who might be neglected to take action, the action that you're talking about? Because I know that's been tried many times. Maybe we've tried it the wrong way, but how are you guys encouraging people to take back your lives, to take back your health with healthy eating? Tell me what you think on those 2 questions.
Do you mind if I address the voter turnout first?
I would love for you to address anything.
Okay.
I'm very impressed
So
with
that
you.
number sounds terrible, right? 38,000 people voted. And so I know a lot of people often tell me, you got to get young people to vote. Why aren't they voting? You got to get them to vote. And the contrarian that I am is quick to say, no. Not voting, when I saw what happened in Cleveland, people not voting is, even if you don't want to listen to it, a political statement. It is a statement that people try to disregard as laziness or disengagement or lack of political efficacy. But not voting is, for me, one of the loudest political statements that says, I'm not voting for you or you. I am voting against this system. I don't believe in this democracy that you guys continue to promote. And I think that what's so disappointing is that elected officials don't hear that. It's like they didn't even think you were worth even getting out of bed to vote against you. Like, they don't believe in you, or the whole thing. And I think it's not just when Russians try to hack our elections or try to manipulate our voters. It's when a black man can't vote because he got arrested with an ounce of marijuana 20 years ago. You know, like, the whole system is what they're voting against, and they're doing so by saying screw it completely. I will find another way to make my voice be heard, but I don't trust y'all, A, B, option C, or D. you know? And so I think that when we hear those numbers, the only people who should feel embarrassed about that, and this is without disrespect to you or myself personally, but the people who should feel embarrassed by that number are the people who hold office. You have to inspire people to get up and vote. It's their right.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
So so that's something that's my first. What was the first question? I'm sorry, I got carried away.
The second part of that question is, what are the top 3 priorities that should be addressed in communities of color or poor communities? I mean, you mentioned a lot. You mentioned, let's see here, I should go to my notes. I got a lot of them here. But you mentioned health, you mentioned work, you mentioned minimum wage, you mentioned housing. Yeah. What are your thoughts on the top 3 priorities that need to be tackled first?
Well, first, I think the platforms on which we talk about these things have to be changed. So there has to be a system change. We have to interrogate the ways that capitalism, that these big terms, democracy, we have to interrogate the way what these things mean to people of color. Is capitalism working? And I know that's radical, right? I'm not proposing a revolution here. I'm asking, can we ask the question without being labeled, like labeled something? Can I say, is this working for us, all of us? And not just, I studied community development at Howard and took a lot of economics classes and hardly learned anything about communism, socialism, et cetera, right? So asking ourselves, do these systems work? Do the way that we vote, is that working? Is that our policies working there? And today, the Provost scholars, we were talking about education funding, and they were like, our schools don't have enough money. And then someone said, well, what about the way that we fund schools? Maybe we should change that. And so I think just changing the way, being radical in our thinking and not being so committed to trying to find a way to make things work within the box, screw the box, forget the box. And feeling like we have the power to create a society that works for us. With so much talk about the founding fathers, this and that, let's create the society that we want and feel like we have the authority to do that,
That's good. Now, Keymah, you mentioned that before. Oh, yeah. You mentioned that before you guys opened Riddall, you talked to the community. So when you talked to the community, what did they say were the top 3 priorities that need to be addressed in that community?
Absolutely. Just to piggyback off of her comment if I could, in terms of priorities that we see is that we have to take control of our stomach back. Okay. And what I mean by that is that it's hard to protest. It's hard to get up and go to work when you're hungry or when you're malnutritioned or when you have a health ailment. If we don't have our health, we don't have nothing. So we put that as a top priority. And part of the effort in terms of going into the community, especially with work with like Kim Foreman and grassroots organizations, we did take the time to ask the survey. People, when we got started, we were right at the end of the housing market crash. And people were very concerned about vacant lots. They were very concerned about access to nutritional food. They were very concerned about the economic realities of the neighborhoods. And really, that was really the genesis of Riddall and many of the projects that came at that time, because they were the answer to what the community was asking. Because we believe that we could go in and take a vacant lot and transform it into an economic engine, not only to beautify it and bring property values back up in the community, but also to bring jobs. Because every component about the work that we do is an employment aspect. And not just for your average everyday employee, but for hard to employ individuals, folks coming back from prison that can't find jobs. So we wanted to create an atmosphere where people can work. And then at the same time, we believe we had to pay them a wage that would allow them to not have to resort back to some other behavior to provide for their family. So those are the top ones that I see from Riddall.
Do you want to chime in?
Sure. And likewise, before I started growing, although I'm an urban farm, I did actually go around to the various neighbors asking if this is something that they were interested in, and if, for whatever reason, I was able to do this. Did they want to participate? What did they want to see me grow? I was able to get that conversation about okra and collard greens and, but because Youngstown had been lied to so much about vacant lots, they didn't trust me. And I don't have the the dialect as them, although I'm from Youngstown. So I was looking at another clipboard person knocking on the door. So I said, I'm gonna show them what I'm talking about. And so that's what I did. And so they were able to look out their front door and wave and see me out there with my tiller every year. And staying power is what I have. And so now I've got a little bit more participation. So I was able to ask the other questions once they've come to the farm and I've got a potluck and I've got open house. How can ladybugs help you thrive? What is it that I can do to help your well-being? How can I make your day a lot better? And a lot of it was education. A lot of it was resources. One of the things in Youngstown we lack is communication. We've got lots of resources, but they're not talking to each other. There's wonderful programs for seniors, wonderful programs for children, all kind of things. So what I made sure is when I did my jingle and my thing, I had a resource table. So my cooking class talks about resources and my partners. So as a business, that's what I do. I don't just feed you good food. I provide you the resources that I can't myself help you with, but I can at least connect you to.
Excellent.
Just one thing to kind of wrap it up. I think the biggest thing that we can provide to our community, maybe that don't have a monetary value, is hope. You know, because so many people in low income or urban communities have just lost hope. Hope in the system, hope in the political, hope in everything, and they just like really just be depressed flat out. And to be able to come outside in an inner city, in a concrete jungle, and next thing you know, you in a place with a giant fish tank and trees, and there's something about creating an atmosphere, and it's a term we call placemaking, that if you could make a place, say maybe people can't get to a place, but if you could create a place in their place, then they can get to it and they can be reinstilled with hope again, hope in their community, hope in their lives, hope in humanity again, because right now, hope and inspiration is at an all-time low in many places.
And I want to add to him.
We're just going to keep adding to each other.
Because as far as hope is concerned, I'm a very private person. I used to didn't tell my story. I told the story of all the letters that would define me as a farmer. But I realized if I don't tell my story, it'll never be told. And my problems and my challenges bring hope to the people. That's right. That I'm just like them. So that's what I do, is I tell my story of how I lost my job, how I was depressed. Mental illness is real. Somebody was gonna take my child, and I was gonna lose that property my grandmother left me. But that growing food got me completely together. So I'm a testament that the soil is healing. And so it brings one person at a time. And that's the other thing, besides the deer and the wild turkey. I've got the two-legged walkers that come to my farm. And I explain to them, there is someone who did pay for this, but with the right communication, we can work out that your family can get some of this food. So it does give hope. You know, and the soil has billions of organisms in them. The soil is trying to tell us how to live as a community.
That's right.
So it is my job, whether I think it's a private space or not, to return back, which I am getting. So I get a lot of people with mental illnesses. I get a lot of people with problems. But the universe blessed me to be in that space. But that soil get them right every time.
Every time.
Every time.
All right, we're going to go to questions from the audience. Yes.
You guys have mentioned some of the. Oh, everybody. Oh, okay.
Oh, we have a mic on either side, in aisle 1 and aisle 2.
Check, check. Okay, you guys all mentioned a lot of the analogous principles to the community work, the agricultural cultivation. So it kind of feels like you guys talked about patience, justice, reaping what you sow. And what would be some of the other kind of just universal principles that you guys found through your journey? I just want to hear more of that.
Thank you.
I would say love, and I'm a very, I don't want to say emotional, I don't know if that's the right word to use. Passionate. I'm a very passionate person. I'm always going to think on that level. And I think about how our work affects people. And that's, I think, where we find our greatest universal appeal, because as I mentioned during the presentation, that food strips down so many barriers. And being in that lane has just been so rewarding, because to see somebody like some of the youth programs that we've done, even working with Environmental Health Watch, to see the way that these lives were changed just from somebody eating a vegan meal for the first time. See, food, and most people just want something that tastes good. You know, I was blessed to be part of this restaurant chain, international chain, Soul Vegetarian Restaurant. And what we did at Soul Veg, we made greens, we just didn't put no turkey necks in it. And we made mac and cheese, and we made everything that was soul food so that people could eat the food and feel that comfort, but not get all of the bad effects from it. So when I think of universal principles that this work kind of embodies, I think of love, I think of giving back, I think of transforming lives at a real grassroots level. And it really, just like growing a plant, you can see the results in the person's life, just like you can see a plant grow, so.
Yes, ma'am. Oh, you want to respond?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was going to say that one of the hardest things is when I got back to the soil was what group was I going to be to tell my message to? Was it just women? Was it just black people? Was it just my neighborhood? I could hear my grandmother, and again, listen to your ancestors, they'll never fail you. My grandmother said, "You gonna give back to those who gave to you." So I was inspired by a lot of people that didn't look like me. There's a lot of farmers that taught me things that I've never learned at Ohio State. And those loving families and those connections, I'm utterly, completely connected to. The soil will attach you to people like you would have never believed. And it was supposed to, because I don't want to do back to what oppressors did to my people. I want to make sure that it's fair, especially when it came to food and when it came to the soil. So that's a principle that I stick with. You show up for me, and I'm definitely going to show up for you.
Greetings, family.
Peace.
Okay, my name is Sister Angela. I'm with the Little Africa Food Collaborative, and I'm here with my team, Sister Tila, Brother Marcus. We are in the process, and Sister Erica's visiting us from Florida. We met at the Food Co-op Conference last month in Milwaukee, and so we're in the planning stages of getting a Black-owned food co-op here in Cleveland, and so thus we're here. Looking forward to seeing Brother Malik on tomorrow when he comes down. But my comment question is more generally around the food security issue. And the fact that, you know, we strive to be independent, and independent to me is free of financial resources that have strings attached to them. However, all the resources that are available to us are strings attached to them. And so, you know, I'm looking, there's a need for us to be able to create our own value supply chain from grower to consumer in terms of value-added products. So I guess my question is, first to Ladybugs, you know, what is your business model, seeing that you are a homesteader? And if Brother from Riddall, you know, would like to answer that too, and even the sister, if you could propose a business model, or have you seen a business model where we could be independent, or if we need to rely on big foundational and grants and things like that, how do we transition into independence without it being something, conflict, more or less?
Well, as my brother here suggested, to get out a pen and paper and sit down, because the 5 founding people will be the workers. Okay? My actual motto is offering well-being from seed to table. Whether I'm growing it for you, whether I'm feeding it to you, educating you on it, or offering you some type of counsel. And in that process, I'm healing myself. So all of my problems will show up in that. Don't ever feel that the work that you're doing is going to be outside of your problems. That won't work. The very things you struggle with are going to be the needs that you have to show up for those people who show up. So you have to be very vulnerable, but actually sit down with a pen and paper and create a plan on what that looks like. And when you create that plan, like he mentioned before, don't buy seeds, don't get no tools, get a plan that works for you. That plan might be selling salads that you, a couple people put together and your $30 turned over into $500. But it's something that will get you started self-sufficient wise, as opposed to with your hands out. They've got some GoFundMe, there's some nonprofits, but that takes away the labor and time. When I realized that I don't want to sit there all day trying to chase money, who's going to be out there growing the food?
Right.
So if that's the case, you need to have somebody on your team that could do that. But if that person is not equipped, then you're going to have some challenges. So start where you are, which is create a really good plan, and let the plan be the very thing that you are challenged with. If you have issues with addiction, childhood, whatever, those are the things you seed into the plan because you're the expert at doing it. I'm an expert on female issues because I got some. That way I didn't have to research a whole bunch of scientific information to memorize, to talk about. You know your story better than anybody. And just like the plants that grow outside your house, they grow there because you need them. So you have everything that you need to do the work. Put it on a plan first. And then you tell us how we can support that plan. I can't tell you, you need a propagation station and you need a hoop house. I can tell you that, but you might not be able to run that. But you can tell me what you can do, and then we can support you at what you're good at.
Only thing I would add is that we embrace the partnership model, and we believe that it takes more than one organization to be sustainable or regenerative, if you will. And when we first founded Ridall, we went into it with the idea that while we always look for and are happy if we receive grant money, but if we never received $1 of grant money, it wouldn't close our doors. Because prior to contrary to popular belief, there's some folk that say urban ag will never work. It's not a business model, but it's all about scale. So we want to continue to be that project that keeps showing, and that was part of one of your earlier questions. We want to keep showing by staying in business that it works. And that we do have folk on our staff that get paid a living wage. And some of that means that, maybe I can't leave my avionics job just yet. But it's about being smart thinking because, again, this niche market that we in, everybody in this room got to eat. We just got to figure out how do we position ourselves that the products and service that we have, that they're attractive to the people. The other part in terms of partnership building is reputation building. One of our team members is a certified public accountant so that we can handle our books in a proper way so that we could always have credibility to go after larger funds. Because in some cases in the funding world, you get one chance to go bad and nobody will give you nothing. And then the final things, we had to dig in our own pocket. He's not here, but one of our partners, Damien, spent a considerable amount of his personal wealth to help us get started. And sometimes still to keep us going. And all of us individually as partners have put in our own money. And that's what really made us attractive to funders when they saw us put in our own money first. Because a lot of organizations wind up in this stalemate. Well, I'll build a project when I get the money. And then the funder's saying, when you build a project, we'll give you the money. Right. So you stuck in this stalemate. And we said we weren't going to be stuck there. Not to just be cliche, but if you build it, they will come. But you got to keep building and you got to keep infusing it with energy. And all value is not money.
Right.
So you could bring a lot of value to a project, to a neighborhood that don't have any monetary value. But it's about finding those unique partnerships, getting people to trust you, building a solid reputation and going from there.
And if I can just add, there is, in my opinion, absolutely nothing wrong with taking advantage of money that might be available out there as grants. I have my colleague here, State Representative Stephanie House, who's in the back. Let's give her a clap. She represents this area in the legislature. Every 2 years, we balance the state's budget, $71 billion. That's what we do. And although some people, I used to sit on Minority Business Financing and Advisory Board, we have all types of money that's sitting there on this panel that we give out every month. And what people tell me is that I don't want the strings attached for the money. Well, the money is sitting there. And there are people who are making up minority companies just to come in to get the money. The fact of the matter is the minorities are not using the money, it's just sitting there. So there's nothing wrong with getting money that's available for programs that you have that we might want to fund. The one program from Ridall, my colleague, Representative Beakey, who owned a sausage farm, he wanted to do more for 4-H. And when he wanted to do something for 4-H, he came to me as the Black Caucus president and wanted my sign off. And I said, well, if you want to do something for your farm, you have to do something for the urban farm. And just like Keymah said, he said, urban farming is not real. I mean, that's not going to last. And I said, well, no, you want to do this, we're going to do that. And that's how we got the grant, the first grant, to work with George Washington Carver and East Tech. And when they saw what they were able to do at Ridall, they were shocked when they got to Cleveland. And we continue to fund them every year. Now, at that point, they didn't need our money, but the point of the matter is,
Stop the press.
we better roll that tape back. But at that point, they had investments. They had St. Vincent Charity. They had other people. They were proving to everybody what they can do. So I would say don't turn away money. And if you want to talk to legislators about trying to get a particular project out there or finding out where resources are, Representative House is the president of the Black Caucus. She knows where funds are. I do too. And we could help you. And don't be afraid of the not-for-profits. Only use us until you don't need us anymore. Now, like Keymah said, you always need us. But the point of the matter is until you can be self-sufficient, take what you can from people and then move on. So we have another question.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I had a question for all y'all, particularly for Allyson. Recently, there was a campaign in the city of Cleveland to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. There's broad participation in that there's about 20,000 petitions that were collected to get it on the ballot. City of Cleveland leadership largely fought back against raising the minimum wage. One of the arguments that was put out there was from supermarkets saying, hey, we're gonna go out of business if we raise these wages. So just question, we want high quality supermarkets and we want high wages. We want good jobs. We want to build wealth in these communities. And also, what Little Africa Food Collaborative is trying to do, putting a worker-owned collaborative to get that wealth. What do you say to supermarket owner, to a community, a city leadership that is saying they can't raise the minimum wage because it might disrupt a supermarket in a neighborhood?
Thank you for that question. So earlier I talked about trickle down and how it's a theory that has not worked and we just keep doing it. And so it's always interesting to me when there's a theory that's, let's invest in people. Everyone's like, no, we can't do that. They don't even want to try it. DC recently raised its minimum wage to $15, and it should be much higher considering what the cost of living in DC is. And all of those supermarkets, because they were in DC too, saying the same thing, who kept saying they were going to close, I taunt them sometimes. I go by their supermarket and I say, what happened? You guys are still here. It's crazy, you guys are still here. I thought we were going to have to shut down. And what we're seeing actually, and the numbers back this up, right? When the minimum wage goes up and people have higher wages and salaries, they're spending more money, right, at these businesses. And we're seeing the businesses are actually the largest beneficiaries of this growth. It's crazy. The businesses always win. It's sad. But I think that you ask them for their receipts, show the numbers. Like, they keep threatening to close, but they never do. They're going to do whatever it takes, even if that means tailoring their business model to make sure that they can survive. What we're seeing in California, what we're seeing in DC, what we're seeing all across the country is that it's really causing economic growth when you invest in people. And that's why I keep saying, put people over profit, and you will see some fake trickle down. I'll come up with a better term for it, but you'll see a trickle down where everyone wins as long as our first commitment is to people. But what do you tell them? You remind them of how much they benefit from tax dollars. You remind them how much they benefit from the people who are working every day to keep their business alive. You remind them, sometimes we can't always try to like suck up to these business owners just because they create jobs. They create jobs and we like pat them on the back. No, laborers are keeping their business alive. And so we do have to change the narrative in which we talk about business owners. They're an important part of our community, but they're people too. And they need to understand that people and community is why they exist. And so that's what I would tell them. Yeah.
Excellent.
I know she's giving me the stop sign, but if you guys can ask two quick, your question real quick, and we'll get one answer from somebody. So, for each question.
Thank you so much for all the information that you've given us. I just wanted to add that in nonprofits, there's a new generation of nonprofits now, and it's called social enterprise. Because of the problems that nonprofits are going to run out of money, and there's sources that are running out of money. And what you've just said, when you said, do your plan, that is social enterprise. It means collaborate with someone and begin to grow your own money. You must, because the money is gone. And there's too many of our neighborhood organizations who had $4.5 million 2 years ago, and they're down to $1.2 million now, and their doors are closing. So please, look up the word social enterprise and grow.
Thank you. Final question. Final question.
Okay. I just wanted to address something. Number one is, why there's so many schools in the city of Cleveland being built without kitchen? I'm sorry. Then number two is, as far as the voter, like the blind, I don't think they ever affected the ones that really can't see, not the ones that lost their vision. See, sometimes people have to understand that. That's why I said to make up the voters. That's what to you, Allyson. Okay. And the deaf, I think they don't understand. They don't comprehend the seriousness what's going on, the issue. This is why I was trying to reach out to people. I have friends that's blind with all different types of disabilities. But I have friends like myself, like deaf. I understand very much so. But I've been trying to figure out how to go and reach out to the deaf community, find out who all in the state of Ohio, do some traveling, try to get them to understand what's going on in their neighborhood. Because a lot of times, just like for employment, they're looking for them just to be on SSI. They're being used and they're being discriminated on the workforce. They don't even understand that. And then the other thing I wanted to let you know is the inner city, the poorest city, the community. Did you know that, I don't know if you pay attention to it, does anybody agree with me on this, but as far as myself, compared to me and my child, she'll be hired before me. I may not, just let's say if, it could be a job working as a manager for Chipotle. I have the skill and experience. She doesn't. But because she's young, she's gonna get the job before me. But we used to get the job for seniority. That's the only thing I wanted to address, and that's why I want to let everybody know. Thank you.
Thank you. Allyson, did you want to comment?
I think what she touched on right now is the two types of discrimination that are often overlooked, and that's discrimination against people who have disabilities. And I had a speaker, I'm a Truman Scholar, and we had a speaker last year who told us that the people are not, it's not the disabilities, it's that society has not caught up to make sure it's as accessible as possible for people who may not have the same capabilities as others. And so we have to do better, and by we, I mean, again, elected officials, I'm just ragging on them today, but elected officials have to do better to create an accessible society. And making sure that we don't reduce people who have certain disabilities to a permanent underclass. That's unacceptable, and it's something that's very important. And age discrimination is something that does not at all get the attention that it needs. And we're seeing now, what she described, the unemployment rates in the the older community and with older community and older people of color are really experiencing unemployment at higher rates. So thank you for highlighting that today. And that is something that I think we need to make sure that our public officials are more aware of. Today, this has been an awesome experience. I've learned so much, and I think that today is an example of when we are educated and when we do know more, we can do better. And so I think that what you discussed is something that we need to educate our elected officials about problems they may not know other people are dealing with. So thank you.
Excellent. I'd like to take this time to thank all of our panelists for being here tonight. Thank you guys for staying as long as you did. We were supposed to be done at 8:30, but this was a great conversation. I'm happy to be a part of it, and thank you guys for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Want to watch it, you can do so on your way out. Not that one. That's the wrong video. So thank you. We do have tomorrow at Ford, which is on Adelbert and Euclid. Starts at 5 o'clock. We'll be in the same building. We don't have to move tomorrow. But please come in and join us tomorrow evening. Thank you.
Take this walk where it all started.
Stolen cars, drug activity, prostitution.
Tires everywhere, some dead bodies, you name it, it was down here.
There were a couple of houses across the street that were abandoned houses that had squatters, and all the street lights were out.
This whole entire area was called the Forgotten Triangle.
And that's where they put us.
We all came together with the idea that we wanted to transform our community. So the Red Our Green Partnership was born.
You had to have a lot of vision.
They say you build and they will come. It's really true.
If you realize that it's more about the ultimate mission of making our communities better, this is not for the faint of heart. The turnaround has to happen and begin somewhere. And why not the Red All Farm?
Good? All right, that's all I'm talking about.
They very good.
Like Dame say, make your tongue slap your brain.
Yeah, good. It's very tasty.
Good, let's get nice and hot too. As we moved into a technologically based, society, people were moving away from farming. Everything was go to the store and get it.
We ended up paying a great price for that convenience. People became convenient and disposable.
It's as if we're creating a system of genocide unwittingly. It's decades different of mortality.
This is what we really need to be doing, is growing our own foods, learning more about being stewards of the earth and whatnot. All right, so you want to pick them out? Okay, this is the average size. Now they're around about a pound, pound and a half. We discovered we had a break-in. End up being kids. So once we realized that, I was trying to figure out how to deal with it, how we're gonna handle it. And I prayed on it for a couple nights on how to approach these kids, because 20 kids jumping on you couldn't hurt you. And I wasn't looking to get hurt, not no time soon.
At that point, you got two choices. Either you're gonna help or you're gonna hurt.
And I ended up riding by their place, seeing them getting on their bikes on their way over here. So I came, parked, and I waited. And they came up, and when they rolled up, I asked them, can I have a conversation with them? And they asked me, who am I talking to? And the more I started having a conversation with them, they started telling me their needs and why they doing it. I mean, you know what I'm saying? There's no hope for them. And they just trying to make something happen for themselves to try and defend, but they thinking crime is the right way. And I was fortunate enough to be able to talk them out of that and into coming to see what we're doing over here, and then eventually starting to work for me and me starting to provide them with different things that they need, like, you know, offering and giving them clothes and shoes.
Damien, he knows how to talk to him. He got him going and got him into it and gave him to me. And once they got to me, it was like, hey, we ready to work.
We said if we don't capture a generation and reintroduce farming and make farming sexy again, there's no way that they're gonna even have an inkling of what it takes to grow. So we dubbed the term that farming was the next survival skill.
There's one thing when it's monetary value, that's another thing when you're saving souls.
I think too often institutions and people of privilege think they have the answers and the knowledge for all situations, and the reality is that that couldn't be further from the truth. And Riddle is such a powerful example of that. The success they've had is orders of magnitude greater than the success of the urban farms that have been put in by large institutions with much greater resources. Riddle is 10 times more successful than all of those because it's homegrown. It's actually of that place, and they know exactly how to run it.
It's all about transformation. We're in the soil making business, and we take old trash, old food waste, and we turn it into black gold soil that we sell for a premium. If we can do that with soil, we believe we can do that with people. We believe we can do it with communities. We can do it with neighborhoods, because it's so much more than just about growing food. It's about engaging the community and getting people happy about living again, and about being healthy again, and about interacting again.
It's almost like you have made a hobby of saving the world.
The things that you ingest in your body, if they're negative, then they'll have a negative effect on your health. Not just your physical health, which leads to heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, but also your mental health. When you have an unhealthy community from their diet, you also have an unhealthy community socially.
In the absence of at least relative environmental equality, there will never be human equality, because we are all a reflection of our environment. If you add all that up that they're doing to make a healthier place, what they're ultimately doing is justice.
We've created a model through our urban agricultural program where our aquaponics, our composting, our training and education programs that help solve the problems that urban core communities are facing. And we know that we can replicate it because we've already done it. We're already in Columbus, Ohio. We're in Twinsburg, Ohio. We're going to Boston. We're going to Buffalo. We're going to Atlanta. We have a partnership with our friend in Belize, Central America. We have a training center there. We have a training center in Israel, Southern Israel. We have 2 training centers in Africa, one in Kenya and one in Ghana. These communities face the same thing. People want access to healthy, fresh food. They want to go to work and come home safely. They want to enjoy family and friends. And we believe that through our model, we've created a solution to give those communities those answers.
You always want to sow good seed in fertile soil. Fertile soil has to now become the minds of the people.